Imagine waking up and seeing your paycheck arrive in Apple Coin, a regulated stablecoin issued by a private company that now has more power over your money than your own bank. Now, that might sound a little dramatic, but the new laws moving through Congress right now could make this reality happen much sooner than anyone expected. These decisions won't just tweak a few rules, they could decide who controls your dollars, what they're worth, and whether you can have a choice at all. My name is Danilo, and today we're breaking down the wave of crypto regulation sweeping the US, Europe, and the UK. I'll show you exactly what you need to watch for, where the biggest opportunities and risks are, and how to prepare so you don't get blindsided when these rules become reality. If that sounds interesting to you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring notification bell so you never miss future crypto updates. Alright, let's get into it. For years, governments around the world treated crypto like a kind of curiosity. Interesting, but not urgent enough to regulate seriously. That all changed in the last 18 months. Between the collapse of all these major platforms, record growth in stablecoins, and rising pressure from voters and institutions, lawmakers realized they couldn't sit on the sidelines any longer. Events like the FTX meltdown and Terra's collapse didn't just hurt investors, they embarrassed regulators who were accused of doing absolutely nothing. That public pressure is one reason this new wave of legislation is moving faster than it ever did before. The US, once criticized for having no clear strategy, is now moving faster than almost anyone expected. This summer alone, Congress is considering three major bills: the Genius Act to regulate stablecoins, the Clarity Act to define which agencies oversee crypto, and the Anti-CBDC Bill to ban a government-issued digital dollar. Lawmakers are calling it, quote, the Crypto Week, with votes scheduled between July 14th and 18th. And if you've been wondering whether this political momentum is real, it absolutely is, and it's happening right now. While the US accelerates, Europe and the UK are taking different paths. The EU's MiCA framework, now active, sets unified rules for exchanges and stablecoin issuers across 30 countries. The UK, meanwhile, has been a little more cautious, lifting certain restrictions but waiting to see how the US and Europe approach regulation before finalizing its own laws. Some call this a second mover advantage, but others warn that by holding back too long, the UK could end up watching innovation migrate elsewhere. And whether you're trading, investing, or building, these decisions could decide where your crypto lives and who controls it. While the US is charging ahead, Europe has focused on building a clear framework first. The EU's MiCA regulation, which took effect in 2023, is still the most detailed crypto rulebook anywhere in the world. Under MiCA, any exchange or stablecoin issuer must meet licensing requirements that apply across all 30 member countries. For companies, this, quote, single passport model is a big advantage because approval in one nation unlocks access to the whole EU. But here's the thing, MiCA also has its challenges. Even though the rules are unified on paper, every national regulator has to interpret and enforce them. That creates fragmentation risk and could lead to uneven enforcement or delays as different countries move at their own pace. For users and frankly for builders, that means you get more predictability than in most regions, but you still need to pay close attention to local compliance timelines. And even if you're based in the US, it matters, because more global exchanges are designing their products to comply with MiCA first. The UK has taken an even more cautious approach. After Brexit, there was talk of turning London into a global crypto hub, but progress has been pretty slow. The government recently lifted its ban on crypto exchange-traded notes for professional investors, showing some openness to innovation. But a full regulatory framework is still in development. By waiting to see how the US and Europe play out, the UK hopes to pick the best ideas, but it also risks falling behind if others pull ahead first. The Genius Act is probably the most ambitious stablecoin law the US has ever proposed. At its core, it requires any officially recognized stablecoin to be fully backed by safe, liquid assets, like short-term treasury bills, and sets strict compliance standards for issuers. One major shift is that states, not just federal regulators, will be able to supervise stablecoin companies. Supporters argue this clarity will finally bring stablecoins into the mainstream by making them safer and more transparent. Just to see how fast this is actually happening, consider that this week alone, Circle applied for a national trust bank charter to issue USDC under federal oversight, and Ripple filed for a banking license and a Federal Reserve master account to launch RLUSD. These aren't vague plans, these are real applications that could be approved soon. Imagine logging into your banking app and seeing your balance displayed in Apple dollars or Ripple USD instead of a traditional bank deposit. If these filings go through, it could open the floodgates for even bigger players to follow. Companies like Apple, PayPal, or X could launch branded stablecoins that feel as familiar to consumers as a credit card. And because the Genius Act lets states handle licensing, it creates a patchwork where some jurisdictions might move much faster to approve new issuers than others. Still, the bill raises some big questions. If companies like Apple, Ripple, or Circle start issuing regulated digital dollars, they could become quasi-banks, concentrating even more financial power in the hands of tech and fintech giants. Some analysts warn this shift might weaken the dollar's dominance over time by giving people alternatives that feel safer or more convenient. And if you use stablecoins or build products around them, this is the moment when regulation stops being theory and becomes reality. The Lummis tax bill is a big step toward finally giving crypto users clear rules. One of its main features is the de minimis exemption. Under this proposal, any crypto transaction with a gain or loss under $300 wouldn't be taxed at all, up to a yearly limit. For regular users, that means you could spend small amounts of crypto without tracking every coffee or online purchase for the IRS. Another major change is how staking and mining rewards are treated. Today, those rewards are considered taxable income the moment you receive them, even if you haven't sold anything. The Lummis bill would defer taxes until you actually cash out, removing one of the biggest headaches for people who participate in proof-of-stake networks or DeFi protocols. The bill also adds clarity for crypto lending agreements and donations to charity. Supporters say modernizing tax rules like this is essential to keep innovation and investment in the US instead of pushing it offshore. If you stake, lend, or spend crypto regularly, these reforms could save you time, reduce paperwork, and make it a lot easier to use digital assets in everyday life. One of the biggest challenges in US crypto policy has been the constant confusion over who's actually in charge. For years, the SEC and the CFTC have argued over whether tokens are securities, commodities, or something else entirely. The Clarity Act is designed to settle that debate by defining clear boundaries so projects and exchanges finally know which rules apply. Under this bill, most tokens that function like commodities, such as Bitcoin, would fall under the CFTC. Assets that look more like investment contracts would stay under SEC oversight. For exchanges and platforms, this distinction is critical because it determines what licenses they need, how they handle customer funds, and which disclosures they must provide. If you've followed headlines over the past year, you've probably seen all the different lawsuits and enforcement actions that contradict each other. One token might be treated as a security in one case, but as a commodity in a completely separate one, leaving companies and users guessing. And if you pick the wrong platform, you could wake up to find your favorite token suddenly frozen or delisted overnight. Supporters say the bill will encourage more legitimate companies to operate in the US and attract institutional investors. Critics, on the other hand, worry that smaller platforms won't be able to afford the cost of compliance, potentially pushing innovation overseas or deeper into decentralized spaces. Either way, if you trade or build in crypto, this bill is worth watching closely because it could reshape the entire regulatory landscape. The Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act is probably the most direct of all the bills moving through Congress. Its entire goal is to stop the Federal Reserve from developing or issuing a central bank digital currency, or CBDC. Supporters believe a government-backed digital dollar would give the state too much power to monitor, control, or even censor how people spend money. They often point to China's digital yuan as an example of how a CBDC could be used for surveillance or programmed to expire. For lawmakers concerned about civil liberties, banning a digital dollar outright feels like a necessary line in the sand. But critics argue that by stepping back completely, the US risks falling behind as other countries modernize their payment system. Even if you don't think you'd ever use a CBDC, this debate still matters. If the government opts out, private stablecoins could end up filling that space by default, shaping what your wallet looks like and who ultimately controls it. That could be good for innovation and choice, but it also raises questions about whether public options will exist at all. So what does all this mean for you if you trade, build, or just want to use crypto without worrying about the rules changing overnight? In the US, this could be the start of a completely new era. If these bills pass, you'll likely see more regulated stablecoins, simpler tax rules for spending and staking, and clear definitions of which tokens are allowed to trade. But you'll also see higher compliance standards and fewer places to operate if you prefer the unregulated side of the market. In Europe, MiCA gives you the most predictable framework anywhere in the world. Over time, you'll see exchanges and wallets offering services across all EU countries with one license. But enforcement can still vary by nation, so it's worth watching how your local regulators apply the rules in practice. Some projects are already choosing to launch in places like France or Germany first because the guidance there is clearer, while others are waiting to see how stricter interpretations will shake out. If you're in the UK, you're in a wait and see phase. Some restrictions have been lifted, like the ban on crypto exchange traded notes for professionals, but a full framework hasn't landed yet. Imagine you're building a DeFi app. You might need to decide whether to launch in the US, bet on Europe's unified rules, or gamble that the UK will eventually create more favorable policies. That kind of uncertainty is why so many founders are watching these next few months very closely. The bottom line is this: the race to regulate crypto isn't some distant idea, it's happening right now, and the decisions being made this year will shape everything from how you hold stablecoins to which platforms you trust with your money. Whether you see regulation as a step toward legitimacy or as a threat to decentralization, it's clear that the old days of the Wild West are coming to an end. If you've been wondering when governments would finally take crypto seriously, the answer is this moment. And if you want to stay ahead of these changes, so you can spot opportunities early, avoid unnecessary risks, and build your strategy with confidence, now is the time to start paying attention. Which approach do you think makes the most amount of sense? The US moving fast, Europe laying down the most detailed framework, or the UK waiting to see who gets it right? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button so more people can discover it, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more weekly breakdowns of the biggest moves in crypto. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.